Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video number 255, Drugging the Babies, How History Repeats Itself. Malnu actually put out a tweet a couple days ago. And apparently some parents, in order to get their infants to sleep, instead of giving them milk or formula, they're taking cereal and shit and they're powdering it, putting it in. And this is obviously terrible for the baby's digestive system and you shouldn't do it, and it could potentially kill them, by the way. It could gunk them up real bad and kill them. Don't ever do that to your baby. The baby's not supposed to, it's like some vegetarian parents giving like a carrot smoothie to their infant. Terrible idea. Has literally taken a lot of lives. But I was thinking, when I saw that, I was thinking about how people do this sort of stuff all the time, and this is just history repeating itself. Like Malnu's thing, he sees it as a symbol of specifically a corrupted modernity. That is, in the more recent sense, like, the smartphone generation. I see it as a repetitive behavior going back thousands of years. People 100 years ago were giving their babies cocaine for toothaches, for teething. They were giving their babies opiates. They were giving them a little bit of laudanum. They gave them alcohol. In fact, that's still practiced in some parts of the perfectly advanced civilized world. In some of the southern European nations, giving a small amount of alcohol to a baby is not considered inappropriate. In Hispanic culture, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical here, but I've seen it firsthand. The idea of a 10-year-old drinking a light beer like a Bud Light isn't considered particularly taboo. Even if it's technically illegal, it happens all the time. Them having a Corona, pardon the reference, is not considered odd. And I was thinking, in the context of babies, I mean, you should see, and I should probably show him this at some point. He'd probably laugh his ass off. Advertisements for some of the things in these herbals that I myself edit. And I usually strip the advertisement parts out because they're no longer relevant, even if they're interesting. I should make like a scrapbook of them and release it at some point. The things that they would give small children for basic complaints, especially worms, which is cavities, tooth pain, anything to deal with dentistry, almost immediately they would give them liquid cocaine. It's very funny. These were very hopped up kids. Cocaine. If they had asthma, they had Datura cigarettes. Yes, the Datura, which probably made them, if they smoked a little too much, probably hallucinated. So Datura, they give them Datura. Henbane is in some preparations, although thankfully not many. I can imagine a lot of their kids died because of that. Cocaine, heroin, early preparations, laudanum, any sort of opiate. Marijuana, in some of these instances, is mentioned as a medical material, like for instance in the Indian bazaars of 100 years ago, especially in some of the outland regions. Frequently marijuana was available in multiple preparations. Some of them were sort of resinous and would be smoked and not in the modern way, but they would take, I guess, the trichomes and they'd make sort of a hash or primitive sort of preparation out of them. Pressing the juice out of them for various medicinal purposes. Hemp seed, of course, applies as well. And all of these things are considered medicinal. A large number of the species that have been employed in that sense, whether for childhood complaints or not, have been psychoactive. They've been drugs. The reason is you can feel better by taking aspirin, but it doesn't produce a particularly powerful visual aspect. That is, that if you take an aspirin, other people around you aren't going to notice that you're on aspirin. For the most part. If you got chronic low blood pressure, it might be a bad idea. They might notice when you pass out and die. But with marijuana or opiates and all of these things, it produces a very marked change internally and an external change in many cases that other people can witness. So, the fact that it might be used for an application that it's not technically medicinal for, like, oh, I gave my kid cocaine for this, basic stomach ailment. Well, you're sort of covering up the symptoms and just getting them high at that point. But they know that the medicine is working, quote unquote, because it causes a visual change. As far as people putting ground up cereal into their baby formula, it's a terrible idea. It's definitely harmful, but it's not a one-off behavior that's unique. The human ability to find ways to do stupid shit that could potentially be harmful and usually doesn't cause death anyway. I just think of Tide Pod smoking. The fact is that people have always been doing this. It's sort of it's not a unique feature of modernity, because modernity is whatever point in time you happen to be in. Literally, I can give you references from the Victorian era, people complaining about the libertine behavior of our society and falling away from God. You get a society that's 99% fire and brimstone Christians that looks at one actress showing her ankle and thinks that society is ending. I can find you examples of that basic kind of material in some of the works, especially from the late 1800s, the 1920s and 30s, certainly, with the flapper movement. It's quite common. I would say that the occult derivation, the occult wisdom here is that people are always dumb. They're not uniquely dumb now. They're just dumb in a different manner. They'll drug their babies. Yeah. Just think of some of the dietary stuff that people were using even like 20 years ago, like ephedrine and stuff. Think of the chemicals people put in their body for all sorts of purposes. Remember Slim Fast? Yeah, I'm going to drink this protein sugar mixture and this will make me lose weight. No, it won't. It might give you diabetes, though. You remember that thing, I can't even remember what it was called. It was a bit popular back in the Miss Cleo era. It was like a belt you'd put around you and it would shock you in order to tense your muscles up, and the idea was that it would make you more fit, and of course it was actually quite dangerous. Think of the thing. And how is that any different from like advertisements you'll see for vacuum tubes that supposedly would suck on the pores of your head and make your hair regrow, that were offered in the 20s and 30s? Like, I've seen ads for stuff like that. Or all of the weird tonics that they would use for, this will defeat all cavities, this cures any disease. And we still have the sort of cure-all culture thing. People are looking for a magic elixir. It's almost like sort of a human trope. Defeat mortality, make yourself beautiful and beautiful forever. It's sort of a human theme. It's rooted in our biology, our desire to mate and promulgate our genes and remain alive in order to continue doing so. It's interesting how that works. If you understand that from an occult perspective, you'd be much better at advertising and branding. All of the corporatists out there, you should go and get some grimoires. You'll definitely do better than you currently do in your profession. Just saying. That's about all. Peace out.